Boom. And welcome everyone to the ProbsCast. Keaton Hargett here, your host. Follow me at OK State Probs on Twitter. Find me on YouTube. I'm streaming on Twitch, definitely on Spotify. But I am here with not only one of the greatest Oklahoma State quarterbacks, but current NFL player, Mason Rudolph. Man, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Keaton. A little about myself. I'm turning 28 in a week. I think that would have, but here we are. I am, I got 2 weeks to go, 2 weeks of freedom before training camp. My sixth year with this begins. So I'm home in South Carolina visiting my parents, actually, hanging in their backyard and spending some time with the family before things get going. But excited to be on. Thanks for having me. And I think
yeah, absolutely. And
it's my first podcast with Oklahoma affiliated. So
yeah. No, I saw that you went on a couple Steeler podcasts. I tried to do some research before I brought you on and everything like that. But I mean, Oklahoma State, we're not this big, media-driven school, and everyone's always talking about us. So it's always nice when the big guys kind of come down a little bit lower, back to their roots, and check it out. So I'm super excited to have you, man. But I saw you were earlier. We were talking about a backdrop. You were complimenting mine while we were having technical difficulties, and then you just popped off with the pine trees in the Carolinas.
That the beautiful trees, beautiful country in the Carolinas. I don't know if you've ever been, but we'd love to have you at some point, Keaton. Maybe my parents, but the state would love to. Maybe my parents. I don't know.
Maybe it's possible. We'll see how the podcast goes.
But I was a big fan of the account, through college, and followed it from afar. I don't think I ever followed on paper, but I was a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a couple things written down, but ultimately I found out you're from the Carolinas. I mean, I know that it's absolutely beautiful out there. I don't think I've been out there. I've been a lot of places, but I don't know if I've been out there. But man, I mean, you were an absolute stud in high school, like absolute stud. And it makes sense because your father played at UNC?
He did. Yep.
Okay, so he played the linebacker position, man. You didn't want to follow in those footsteps?
No, I wasn't tough enough for that. No, he played at North Carolina in the 80s for a guy named Dick Crum, who I believe preceded Mac Brown, and the first time around when Mac was at North Carolina. So yeah, I was a big, had his jerseys in the closet, and football was definitely, my brother and I played all sports, but that was kind of always a special goal that we had to play because we wanted to follow in his footsteps. So it was fun.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I know the Carolinas are beautiful, but what kind of shocked me, man, is, I was looking over essentially what led you to Oklahoma State, because finding out that you were in the Carolinas, I was like, well, what was the purpose behind that? And man, I followed your 247 trip, which it sounds a lot deeper than it is, but man, whenever it's all in front of you, it's pretty easy. And I noticed that, man, you had offers from a lot of different schools, but did you even take an official visit to Oklahoma State before you came out?
I did not, because I guess they wouldn't let you. I don't know what the rules have changed so much now, but I took an unofficial, I think it was spring of it would have been spring of 12, going into my I think Clint Shelf and J.W. Walsh were sort of the guys at that point. I remember seeing Whedon and Zach Robinson walking out on the sidelines, kind of strutting their stuff, and being enchanted by that. But I was it was just kind of a spur of the moment spring break for me in high school. Did the trip, had an offer from Mike Yursich, who had just been hired. Didn't really think a whole lot of it, other than they ran an air raid offense I did in high school. Felt like it was worth our time, and I enjoyed it. But I was sort of, at that point, still probably set on going to LSU, and then but the recruit.
No, I hear you. Yeah, I saw that you had an offer from LSU, and then you went and accepted Oklahoma State. But right after you accepted Oklahoma State, man, you went and toured Alabama and Georgia back to back.
No, that was pre. Well, it might have been.
Okay.
I don't think I was committed, but yeah, I think it was the same spring break trip. We hit Georgia because they're close. Alabama, they're close, and I think we flew from Alabama rather to Stillwater or to Tulsa, and I think
Stillwater Airport isn't the biggest.
No, and it wasn't even a thing at that point. There weren't any commercial flights. I think they added that my senior year. You could go to Dallas and connect through Dallas, but yeah, I mean, I did really think it was a really cool town. I loved how much the coaches were excited about me, Mike Gundy and Rob Glass, and so couldn't have had a better experience. Forever.
Yeah, that makes a lot. I mean, it makes sense. And honestly, as an Oklahoma State fan, we were talking earlier. I have a lot of family played Ohio State, TCU, Baylor, you name it. My family probably has some roots there. But it made me feel better as an Oklahoma State fan whenever I saw that you looked like you were leaning to LSU and you were touring Alabama and Georgia. And I was like, man, we really pulled some kid out of the Carolinas who had SEC offers and then decided to go to Oklahoma State. And I truthfully believe, and Alan Bowman is one of the many that told me, all the quarterbacks I got on here, that that air raid offense can bring in a lot of good quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think even I don't know if you'd call us even when I was there. I think Dana Holgerson and Todd Monken really got the air raid sort of reputation. Whedon was a true air raid offense. When we my 4 years, we sort of we had the same. I don't know if you've heard of the '90s concepts of the '90s package of drop back passing. We kept those, but we added a lot. We added the cowboy back, what we called it, basically off the ball back, and a lot of RPO stuff and a lot of play action stuff. So, I think you're right. I think people still remember the Whedon days and Whedon and Blackman and just when they think of Oklahoma State, they think of long deep ball touchdowns. So, but I think the offense has evolved and changed, and Mike Gundy and whoever's been at the helm, Casey Dunn now, they've done a good job.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I think that they kill it, and I think that's always going to be the deal. Is Mike Gundy's going to want a badass quarterback and some awesome receivers, which is great from a fan's perspective because you look at Big Ten football, for example, and they're big on hard nosed run it down your throat football. And granted, that clearly works for a lot of them, but it's a lot more fun for the fans whenever the ball's going through the air and James Washington's catching another one 80 yards down the field for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah, so it's kick ass, and I think it was awesome too. Going from almost with every school now, you got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You got Kyler Murray wanting to go back with Hollywood Brown, and there's it works better for some than others. But one of the coolest things was you and James Washington were kind of trendsetters on that, coming right out of the gates. I mean, were you excited whenever y'all both went to the Steelers?
Yeah, absolutely. I was watching the draft. Saw James get drafted a round earlier, and I think when your name gets called, it takes a minute for you to sort of calm back down and think about, okay, now I'm on a new team. Who's on that new team? Who do we draft tonight? And then I was like, it dawned on me that I'd be back with James for what ended up being 4 years. So incredible experience. He's a great lifelong friend. Texas red dirt, Cal last farm boy that I love but it was exciting and just what a blessing to be able to spend 4 more years with James and root him on now from afar, in New Orleans.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because I'm growing up in the DFW area. I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan, right? And so I really wanted y'all to work out in Pittsburgh, but when it came to Dallas, I was amped up personally. now obviously there's some injuries and things like that, but now he's in New Orleans Saints, and I don't know if you've been down to New Orleans. I'm assuming with the offer from LSU, but New Orleans is a badass city.
Yeah, it is. We were there for the Sugar Bowl and got worked pretty hard by the Ole Miss Rebels, but I've been a few more times in and out for the Manning camp. But yeah, no, I think I think you said it. He's healthy. I think there's more urgency in his preparation than ever before, and I think you'll see him do well. I talked to him, I've spoken to him, and he likes to fit with the offense, and I think he's meshing well with Carr, and so absolutely looking forward to watching him play.
Yeah, man, no, absolutely. So whenever y'all met, like in Stillwater, was it just like an instant click? Because like Whedon told me it was an instant click with Blackman. Does that make sense?
We met at the concession stand in the BPS there. I think it was a TCU game of 2013, and we were all sitting in sort of the same area in the end zone watching the game, and went to the concession stand, and I remember meeting him, and he's still, as you've spoken to him, he's quiet, he's reserved, won't say a word. I mean, he'll speak, but it kind of, especially at that age, out of high school, small town, very quiet dude. So, no, I was like, are you the guy from the internet that's also cool? And so we talked and met, but I would, from the moment he got on the field and we started to see his leaping, his range, his sort of jump ball combat catch ability, I think it was pretty quick. We realized that this guy's special, and I'm going to try to throw the ball to 28 whenever I can.
No, that makes complete sense. I mean, I think everyone loved that combo back to back, and I started at Oklahoma State in 2018, so like I kind of missed right before you, but I remember I'm a college football man, clearly. Like I said, a lot of my family played college ball, and that's what we did on Saturdays, and I watched every single game, and I loved it. And one of the games, I actually almost got fired from this one place I was working at because I kept watching Bedlam 2017. Which didn't fall in our favor. However, I just remember, like, man, it was just like electric, like the energy and everything like that really pulled me towards going to Oklahoma State. But I mean, what's it like playing in a game like with that intensity, like with everything on the line with Bedlam?
Yeah, well, it was your rival, and that's a game that you kind of look forward to, circle all year, and quite a shootout. They obviously got the best of us. We only took them down one out of my 4 years. So, they got the best of us overall. But I think, I've had friends that have family friends who went to that game, and I think it was the first college football game, and they've said, like, I don't know if I ever want to go back to a game because that was the best, most just back and forth, so much scoring, and there wasn't a whole lot of defense being played that day, that's for sure. So
I mean, yeah, it's not Pittsburgh Steelers TJ Watt defense, but I mean that's what made the Big 12 great for so long. Was like the RG3s and the Trayvon Boykin on TCU, and I mean that's what I mean. A lot of people like. We were talking earlier about how much people like watching the ball go through the air and everything like that. Now there's some problems with that with defense and everything, but I mean there was no offense in the Big 12 that wouldn't put up 40 points on anyone.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it was fun to watch those guys. The guy who's the guy at Baylor also, 14. Anyways, they had an incredibly explosive offense for a long time. So a lot of good.
Yeah, and Baylor's always been that way. My grandfather's in the Hall of Fame for them. And I had an RG3 jersey. I actually just found it the other day before NIL or anything like that was available. That my parents got me whenever I was a kid, which is hysterical because now I call him RG 0-3 because he went 0-3 against Oklahoma State. But man, I know that game was huge. But I mean, outside of the Bedlam games, I mean, what would you say was like the biggest game that you were part of?
I'd say freshman year Bedlam on the road, first win definitely stands out.
That was intense, man.
Yeah, I think just each year, winning 10 games. Beating Texas 3 years in a row was fun, and going into their place on the road twice, winning, and then getting after them pretty good at home. In 16, I think West Virginia was highly ranked. TCU was highly ranked. In 2015, I think we played TCU when they were undefeated, and came out on top. So a lot of good ones, bowl games and as well. But
no, that makes sense, and it's conglomeration for sure. But yeah, no, that I mean, it's awesome. Like everything that you gave Stillwater, I'm telling you, whenever I walked in, it was huge shoes to fill for Taylor Cornelius, and a lot of people didn't like that. I liked Taylor Cornelius personally. I thought, he was a great dude. He killed it in the XFL. He was Tampa Bay Vipers, all that, man. Like it's corn dog, It's like, well, what a better nickname to have in the place where Sonic started. But
I think he was, underappreciated for whatever reason. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he threw 35 touchdowns his senior year. Without really having a whole lot of experience in game, and just stepped in and took him to a bowl game. Played well, won 8 or 9 games, and I mean, Taylor couldn't have been a better guy and a better to me as a backup quarterback through our years, and just a dear friend and a big Taylor Swift fan.
Taylor Cornelius
knows about every lyric to about every song. So, but he's great, and I think he just got married a few months ago. Wasn't able to make it, but happy for him. Great dude.
Yeah, I mean, you got the NFL schedule and everything like that, so I could imagine that it'd be a tight fit. I know you and I kind of battled on scheduling there for a while, but yeah, no, Taylor Cornelius was my freshman quarterback, man. So I mean, I was an absolute fan of him, and I liked everything that he gave. Now, when you were in school, though, like obviously you said there's been a lot of changes and everything like that. I mean, what's your Gundy? By the way, I don't know if you watched Big 12 Media Day. He called transfer portal and NIL kind of like politics and religion at the dinner table.
Did he? I didn't see any of the quotes, but nothing surprises me that comes out of his mouth anymore. He's great. He's a national treasure. And but what was the question? Remind me.
I mean, there wasn't one yet, but going off that, man, I mean, your relationship with Gundy was pretty tight. I mean, y'all did the flex off and everything like that?
It was. He I think Mike is ultra competitive. We weren't as close sort of my first couple years, but I think going into my junior year, we had a conversation. I just said, hey, I'm going to find a time to come up, and we're going to spend some time once a week during the week watching I think we watched like a Tuesday practice on a Wednesday morning, and I'd cut out of class and come in there, and I think that helped us just enjoy each other's company more. And I was able to sort of look at his mind, just get more comfortable with his perspective as a coach and how he saw things, how he saw the offense, X's and O's. There might be suggestions we both thought, and then we yell across the hall and have Yursich come in and say, Mike, or it was like I'd tell Gundy something, and he'd say, you want that in? And something that I wouldn't maybe feel comfortable. I mean, I would feel comfortable with telling Yursich anything. When the head coach calls you over and says, hey, we're putting this play in because the quarterback likes it, it's a little bit different process. So he was great. I mean, talking about a guy that played quarterback, at the alma mater, who's the head coach. I mean, just so much experience, so much. He's lived the same life that I did in that town before me, and he had so much wisdom. And I appreciated him opening up to me, and we still text and talk quite frequently. And he's got a couple kids. Obviously, Gunner, who's working hard. And I think he's, have a chance to get back on the field at some point. And then you got the kid Gage, who just a championship right at high, and I think he's a baseball player as well. And so I'm sure Gundy's been, he's got a lot
on his plate.
Yeah, but he's also trying to win games, which he's done for a long time. So I'm excited to see how it goes for the Gundy family.
Yeah, no, I mean, he has a lot to live up to, I mean, or not Gundy himself, but like with everything that he has on his plate and everything like that. I mean, we talked earlier before the podcast, kind of about how like there's a lot more that goes into it than most people realize. And I'm in construction sales, and 60,000 people are sitting around me, judging me, and then tweeting about my performance. I promise you, it would be a lot harder of a job, if that makes sense.
I agree.
But yeah, no, I totally understand the Gundy deal. I'm always curious about his interactions and whatnot. And, I think he just about anything he says is a quote. And I know a lot of people just like him.
Yes.
So what?
That you mentioned the flex off thing. That was, I hadn't thought about that in a while, but he that was a total fast one he pulled on me. He had been working out. I think he was pretty fired up about the way he looked, and so he put me on the spot, and I couldn't not oblige my head coach, but not something a great memory, but my dad, I remember my parents being like, "What did you have him do?" I was like, "Listen, it wasn't me. It was that man's idea."
Well, I've seen him running around campus before, like in full sweats, working out, especially my first year. But right next to the Sonic, the original Sonic, is a self-wash car wash. And man, it had been like the first month or two that I just moved to Stillwater. And I remember seeing him out there shirtless, and he was using his shirt as a towel. I guess he had forgotten his towel. He was drying off his Tahoe. And I was like, dude, this man is literally just one of us. Like maybe it's that, or maybe he just takes, any time to get shirtless, he's going to take advantage of it.
Any opportunity he presents itself, he's going to strut his stuff. But no, he, like you said, he's at the hometown car wash, washing down his own Tahoe. That's the kind of guy he is. Anyone else who's making $6, $7, $8 million a year would probably have somebody come to the house. But that's
I totally get it, man. And I watched Our Time. I don't know if you got to watch that, like the ESPN documentary.
I've seen clips, I've seen episodes, but not the whole thing.
It was pretty cool because it was when I was in school there. So like the girl I was dating at the time, like her apartment complex was in it on the first scene because Chuba Hubbard lived there, and I was like, I didn't even know Chuba Hubbard lived like 2 doors over from you. Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was COVID years, so it was a little. There were some things here and there, but I mean, everything that Gundy said was like a quote. I mean, at one point they were going through the Chick-fil-A line, him and his son, because his son was getting his permit, so he had driving hours, and he's like making lines about Chick-fil-A. It's like he's a countless dude. And I think everyone, like, if you don't like Mike Gundy, then you probably just don't like college football. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. He's great all time.
Yeah, no, he's an awesome dude, but. So when it comes to your time at Oklahoma State, one of the biggest games, obviously you went in first versus Baylor, but you talked about your first win with Bedlam. Tyreek Hill, friend of the ProbsCast, great guy, had him on. I mean, what was that like, with that type of silence inside of Gaylord Memorial?
Yeah. Well, I'm first of all, I'm happy that glad to hear Tyreek did the podcast. I think a while back. He's I think Emmanuel Agua mentioned their teammates in Florida that he that Tyreek would like to get involved as much as he can, back in Stillwater at some point, and whether that's a camp or I think he had the idea of maybe doing a camp, but he's a dear friend, and obviously we only had him for a season, and I think we could have won a few more games had we had him any longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that quite a game, and I'll never forget it. But he bailed us out there when we needed it the most, and quite a. Oh, he had some blocks on the special teams unit, but I think just I remember seeing him the first time he got out there, and we came in together. He was a JUCO guy. I was a freshman graduating high school early, and I think J-Dub tossed him a sweep or something like the first day of spring practice, and the guy like reversed the field and scored a touchdown, just made everybody miss in the team. And we were just looking at each other like, how did we get this guy? Like, this is unbelievable.
No, he's insane. I mean, they call him a cheetah for a reason. I mean, you talked about how you met James Washington. I mean, what was your first interaction with Tyree?
I think I don't remember the first interaction. I remember meeting him in the locker room, and I think we were all like doing some sort of a strength and conditioning assessment because the new guys get grouped in together, and met him, and I knew who he was. I knew he was a highly touted JUCO recruit, but just a personal guy, and he's kind of got a little bit of an accent, which is but he was just a big ball energy, playing Xbox in the locker room all the time, and you could just tell though he was different, and he's a track star. Just his body was just sculpted like a freaking Greek god, so you could tell he was going to be a good player.
Yeah, he almost broke Usain Bolt's 100-meter time in high school, I think, is the amount of information I tried to find on him. But I mean, he was one of the coolest guests I ever had on. I mean, like, we talked for like 10 minutes right out the gate before we hopped on, and man, he literally was like, "What up? It's your boy Tyreek Hill, aka the Cheetah." Like, I was like trying to click record as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that he's like that with everyone, to be honest, because like I said, I like whenever the big guys can come down and kind of shed some light onto Stillwater America.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a very personable dude, and anytime we play against each other, try to speak and say hello, and but keeps in touch with a lot of his Oklahoma State teammates, and hasn't let the success that he's had, and he's had a lot of it, really get to his head, and that's why we all love him. So.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And, one of the cool parts about like going to Oklahoma State, and, my family talks to me about going to Oklahoma State because I was going to be the first one. Well, I guess not the first one to go out of state, but the first one of their children to go out of state. And they were telling me, they're like, Oklahoma State's very down to earth and no one's above anything there. And it was a big shock going from the DFW Metroplex to Stillwater, Oklahoma, where, population isn't big enough to have a target. And so whenever I came up with the idea of the podcast, I was like, dude, I feel like a lot of that is based on people who have lived here. And, I can get guys like yourself, and you don't have to be humble, but you're a pretty damn big dude. You're a huge name in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And for, guys like that to come on, I felt like it was the best idea to go ahead and give you a kind of a platform and things like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think I haven't done a lot of podcasts, but it's just the technology is pretty cool, and I think I like to hear questions that bring me back to college days. I just had an absolute blast. So
speaking about college days, we kind of talked about Bedlam, and that's not what this whole podcast is about, but I mean, last Bedlam of it till further notice. I mean, what are your thoughts about Texas and OU just splitting?
Yeah, I mean, this will be the last one, I guess. So it'll be, hopefully we can knock them off and, keep the bragging rights until whenever they'd like to bring the game on, maybe a non-conference sort of a game at some point. I don't know what the schedule looks like, but yeah, I mean, it's a money business. I mean, everything.
It's all about money. Yeah.
So
politics and religion.
There you go. Those three. And I understand them leaving, and I think it takes away from a little bit, takes away from the tradition of the conference a bit, but they've added some good teams who've some good programs as of late, and I think it is what it is. Oklahoma State's not going to change, not going to change Mike Gundy's mindset of controlling what we can control, and trying to beat Big 12 championships each and every year. So
no, that makes sense.
I think, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Have you reached out to Alan Bowman yet?
Have I? I have not. I was talking to Gundy about him, and Gundy said a lot of good things. And, I'm looking forward to watching the kid this year. And I think, I remember him at Texas Tech. And so, I think he's,
Well, I mean, dude, he's gleaming with confidence. Like everything he said on my podcast sounded right. But I mean, as Mason Rudolph, these kids look up to you, right?
Well, I maybe they do. I don't. It's weird calling them kids.
They definitely do.
I'm getting old. I'm getting old in my years, but no, I'll. It's a good idea. I do need to say hello to Alan, and I'm always rooting them on from afar, no matter who's at the helm. Rooted on Spencer and Taylor, obviously, and won't change this year.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. With Alan Bowman, obviously, we're going to wish the best for him and everything like that. But we would love for you to come back for what's it called? The Last Bedlam. I think that would be a great opportunity for you to come down. Des Bryant came down for the Bedlam in 2021. It would be awesome for you. And ultimately, and I'm kind of flipping back and forth between Pokes of the Purpose and this podcast, but Pokes of the Purpose loves bringing people back, man. And we talked a little bit earlier about the NFTs and everything like that. And, man, if you could give a better understanding of how these NFTs work to people and why you joined Pokes of the Purpose, I think everyone would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the guy we mentioned who's at the helm of a lot of things, Oklahoma State right now, being Kenneth Novotny, dear friend, who's very much involved, if not the leader of the NFT program with Pokes of the Purpose, and just a brilliant guy that has done a lot for Oklahoma State in recent years, and he's the most smartest tech computer nerd that does not look like a computer nerd. I mean, the guy looks like he used to wrestle or fight, but he's a brainiac, and but yeah, I think that's one facet of generating dollars to compete around the country and in the NIL space, and I was a large portion of the NFT dollars going back to that fund, and then keeping letting the players earn some money as well, current and former. So I think it's a great program. I think funny story about Ken. I was at a Thunder basketball game in 2016 in the spring, and Zach Crabtree and I were sitting pretty close to the court, and him and his wife were sitting behind us. Ken's in one of his big flamboyant shirts, which he wears, and he taps me on the shoulder and says, I think his wife did it, "Are you Mason?" And I said, I was working. And I think I can say this now, Keaton, because at the time, if you got a $5 hamburger, or it was an NCAA, one or two times to Thunder games, and they were not. I didn't. So he asked me, are you Mason? And I say, no, my name's Jonathan. That's not who I am. Hats on. We're trying to stay incognito, worried sick. And so a couple weekends later, we see him in Oklahoma City. We're at a venue, and I go over to him. I said, "Hey, man, I didn't want to be a bad guy. I am Mason, and it was nice to meet you and your wife." And come to find out, Ken, Oklahoma State grad, and is an alumni, and he's just
he kicks a lot of ass, dude.
Big fan of football.
He talks to me and he tells me, because I did a lot of research on him whenever he kind of entered Pokes of the Purpose, and I was like, man, this dude's been on Bravo, like on yachts. He has a trophy wife. He kills it on his daily life. I actually invited him to be on the podcast because I was like, I want to bring you on. So because he started off with, I was a bartender at Eskimo Joe's, and I was like, yeah, well now you're filthy rich and you don't play football, so let's figure out how every bartender from Eskimo Joe's can do that. And I think he had a lot to his life that people could share. But that's awesome though, that before NIL, and personally, I believe that during Christmas time you would have been on every single ad in Oklahoma just because of your last name.
Yeah, I agree, but I think he just sold his company for a lot of money, and he's gotten very much involved with the sports programs, and he's him and Amberly are dear friends, and but it was the most random sort of way to meet and to see him now. He's gotten so much involved. He's good friends with a lot of former players, and has a lot of function at his house, which is a freaking amusement park in the middle of Oklahoma City. Just happy to see him giving back.
No, it's awesome. That's awesome. And like I said, kind of in the beginning of this is like, man, we'd love to have you back. And those are the purpose of me reaching out to a couple of former athletes, even Tyree Kill, to hopefully bring him back. But man, I hope that you do reach out to Alan Bowman. I mean, he's going to be the Red Rocket. Got a little redhead in him, and I hopefully, I think anyone that supports Oklahoma State is going to say, I hope he absolutely kills it, because this is the year where we send off Texas and OU, and I hope that it'd be a great lightning strike towards what the future holds.
Totally. No, I'll be rooting for him and the team like always.
Absolutely. Well, other than that, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I told you like only 30 minutes. We got a little past that, but I really appreciate all your time, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And like I said, big fan of the account, and I'll be make sure you're pumping out good comedic material this year. I'll be following. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of good meat. A lot of good meat. And job with that. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You have fun.
Thanks, man. Take care.